Smith, it's what I do. And then we shall get started. And then when we have the overflow individuals that are late because they can't get up at a decent hour in the morning, then they will maybe join us in the back. So it works. I know, right? You get points. But not if you're tardy. I just really wanted to say the word tardy today. And I did. Mission. Because we likes the party. Wow. And action. Welcome to Social Media Breakfast number 18. Some of you heard me say 19 earlier, but it's not. So someone needs to go back and practice his words. Who here has never been to a social media breakfast before? I see a lot of new faces, which is awesome. Now, of all you noobs, and actually of all you seasoned social media breakfast veterans, how many people don't have a Facebook or the Twitter or anything like that? Are there any people that don't use social media at all right now? Kindly leave. Wow, that's awesome. Sometimes you have a few people that are just like, oh, you know what? I kind of want a Twitter. I don't know. I maybe want to use the Facebook. Well, Social Media Breakfast for the noobs is a great place to kind of dip your toes into the Twitter pool and see if the water's the right temperature before you dive right in. And then for all you people that are seasoned Twitterati, welcome. This is a great place to meet people, and it's also a great place to find out how people are using social media in their personal and professional lives to better themselves or better their communities. So welcome one and all. I'm excited to see such a crowd. This is our biggest crowd yet. So props to you guys for filling the room, and props to you all for showing up so early. So plan to stay at the take two. Plan to stay after the breakfast just to meet people, just to make friends. That's my favorite part of the breakfast, is meeting all the people that I haven't seen before. And like all your hands indicated, there's a lot of new faces. So I'm excited to meet you all. But are you excited to meet me? No, because I'm too energetic in the mornings. Thank you to our sponsors. We have MarketWire, who are just getting back onto the Social Media Breakfast Edmonton train, so huzzah for them. The good folks at the CBC, they have been more than gracious with their venue sponsorship, and they provide this awesome venue, so let's give them a hand. Woo. And the good folks who are streaming this live out there in the internets, fuselogic.tv. We have Evan in the back, our producer. Can we call you our producer now, Evan? Nice. I like that. We're going to win awards. I feel it. And you and I will both accept the speeches with dignity and grace. And we have a food sponsor again, Capital Jeep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the rock over to the good folks at Capital Jeep, and they're going to tell you what they're all about. So we have Callie. Callie, welcome, and thank you for nourishing our minds today and our bodies with awesome food.
All right.
So tell us what you're all about.
Well, at Capital Jeep, we're trying to change the car business. We're trying to take it away from selling you a car, and we're trying to make the actual relationship. And that's where Twitter and Facebook and everything comes in. We just want to be a part of this community. So, yeah.
Well, we're excited that you're part of the community. I was a huge Dakota fan once, but I drove that thing to the ground, true story. So if you're ever looking for a truck, go to the good folks at Capital Jeep. So here's our dedicated committee. We have 4 individuals, and actually I'm going to introduce you to 2 new ones in a bit. I don't think they're here yet, but we're excited to let you guys know that they're part of the social media team. So first and foremost, we have this guy named Steve Hodges, or Hedgehog. He's kind of loud, talks a lot, but he is a shameless promoter of all things awesome, and he is Hedgehog on Twitter. And then we have Jackie Fraser, who is a steadfast champion of the great city of Edmonton, and when she's not working or going to Nate, she's involved in a variety of other community initiatives, and she is Savage Tyner on Twitter. Next up, we have Morgan. Morgan is our sponsorship coordinator. She's waving. She's got an awesome blue sweater on. She's working with Elm to get you guys some amazingly tasty food. And then we have Kylie Robertson, who is our resident photographer, and also the shameless promoter of all things awesome. And she just waved her camera up because it's way too early in the morning. But we have two new people that are joining our team. We have Randy Brzezowski, or Randwolven, or Group of Rogues on Twitter. He's decided to sign up, as well as Marlis Weber, or Marlis W on Twitter as well too. I think they may show up a little bit later, but sometimes you got to use your skills to pay the bills, so they're probably off doing that right now. So welcome them to the team. If you're on the Twitter, be like, hey guys, excited that you're joining the Social Media Breakfast Edmonton party. So sometimes we read these tweets as organizing committee, or sometimes you guys will read them in the YEG feed. People are like, what the heck is this social media breakfast thing? Well, what you can do is educate them and tell them to follow either SMBYEG if they want the social media breakfast Edmonton info, or if they feel gregarious one day and they want to take the road trip down to Calgary, they can also follow SMBYYC at the lovely addresses below. So write that down if it's way too early in the morning. I take vivid notes, obviously. We need food sponsors, and if you are interested in also shamelessly promoting your organization or a client, or you know what, just want to, like I say, feed us in the morning, then contact us via the Twitter, SMBYEG, and you can sponsor us for breakfast. The costs are approximately around $250. That'll help pay for the food, the coffee, those awesome branded name tags that you guys are wearing. And then you get an opportunity to take the mic away from me and A, enjoy the silence that brings, or B, introduce yourself to the world. So once again, if you're interested, drop us a line. Also, if you are interested in presenting at a social media breakfast or know someone that would be perfect for this sort of setting, also drop us a line, either on our personal Twitters or on the official social media breakfast Twitter, or contact Jackie directly. She works very hard to bring all these awesome speakers in, and that's a true testament of the strength of our event. So yeah, let's keep it awesome, people. The next social media breakfast number 19, that will make us legal to drink in British Columbia, will be Friday, July 27th at the Mercer Building. We're going to meet up with our friends at Startup Edmonton, and we're going to just try something new. It's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. The Mercer Building, I will tweet the address or put it online. Okay. I don't know if you guys know this, but you know your smartphones have like Google Maps on it? And that's how I relate. I'm like, I'm incredibly reliant on that. I'm a landmark guy. I'm like, it's by that building with like the trees, and I think there's a McDonald's there, and it turns out the McDonald's is actually a Burger King, and the trees are actually rocks. I found out I was colorblind this week, so have sympathy on me. And we'll post the details all about our speaker and next month's breakfast shortly, so stay tuned for that. And if you are interested in attending a breakfast, maybe you're in Calgary and you want to see what they're all about, the social media breakfasts in Calgary are the second last Fridays of every month. And if you'd like to know Donna or Donna McTee or Chet12, or any of the other committee members, follow them too, because they're just as awesome. We're awesomer, but they're pretty swell themselves. So meet them too. They're really interested in connecting with the Edmonton folk. Now, I'm going to pass the mic around, and we're going to introduce our presenters today from the Edmonton Police Service. So I will pass the mic around, and then, without further ado, we will get started. So, welcome, guys. Welcome to the Edmonton Police Service. Let's give them a hand, guys.
Hello. Oh, can everyone hear me? Yeah, this is good. Hi, my name is Carolyn, and I am the website content coordinator with the Edmonton Police Service.
I'm Hans Christian Larson. I'm the marketing coordinator of the recruiting unit.
Morning, everyone. I'm Constable Chapman Lee.
My name is Chris Anderchuk. I'm actually a social worker with the City of Edmonton and acting supervisor with the Neighborhood Empowerment Team.
I'm Trisha Boonstra, and I am a community capacity builder on the NET team in Macaulay, and I'm Chapman Lee. Constable Chapman Lee is my partner, so we work together.
Yeah, would you mind? Thanks. Could you put it into the other? Because it's not working. Like it's not forwarding.
Oh, you might have to use the...
Just use the, yeah? Okay, that's fine. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks to all of you for coming here so early to hear us speak. We really appreciate it. And a big thanks to Social Media Breakfast Edmonton for inviting us to come. We're really happy to be here. So I've already introduced myself. Just a quick repeat. I'm Carolyn Marin, and I'm the EPS website content coordinator. So I work out of the corporate communications branch for the Edmonton Police Service. And then my partner in crime is, so to speak, Hans Larson, who is the marketing coordinator in the recruiting unit. So we work in two separate buildings, but we often team up together to handle the social media presence. So just a quick overview of what we're going to be chatting about today. We're going to start with the beginnings. So where exactly did we start and when and why? Our evolution, so where are we at now? Our purpose, so why exactly are we on Twitter? Why are we on Facebook? Why are we on YouTube? The challenges, so here I'll be addressing the fact that we are a bit of a different kind of organization, and I'll go into that a little bit, and that has a lot to do with our challenges. We'll also be talking about our future, so where are we going? We definitely have some future plans for our social media. And then the NET team, so Chris and Trisha are going to give us a little bit insight on how NET got involved with the EPS on social media. So I'm just going to hand it over to Hans, and he's going to start us off.
All right, so I'm going to just start talking to you about where this all began and... Oh, my face is rated. Oh. So this initiative began in the recruiting unit in 2009, and we wanted a resource for potential applicants to find out what a cop's day is like. And everyone kind of knows what a cop does, but we wanted to bring it down to more on a micro level. So we began exploring options on how to best deliver this type of content, and we thought about, just a web page on our joineps.ca website. We thought about creating a video. We thought about doing a blog, and we thought about using social media. And each one had their advantages and their disadvantages. And of course, surprise, surprise, we ended up choosing Twitter, and we chose Twitter for a variety of reasons. I just want to touch on 4 of the major ones. The first one is Twitter allows us quick and easy messaging. The officers who are doing this are doing it on top of all their other job duties, so they need something that is rather quick and easy, and sometimes a blog post can be a little more time consuming and a little more involved. The second reason was the officers already had Blackberries, so the infrastructure was already in place to launch this. We didn't need to acquire anything outside of officers. We didn't need to build anything, or we didn't need to buy anything. So when we could get this launched right away. The third reason, the content would always be fresh and up to date. If we did a video, people would watch it once and kind of maybe a few more times, but the nature of the job really begged for something that was constantly changing and constantly being refreshed. And the final reason was, people love hearing stories. I've never met an applicant or even a citizen who hasn't loved hearing a story about something that happened on shift. And so these were the main reasons why we chose Twitter. So after we chose Twitter, how are we going to implement this? We asked for volunteers for this initiative. We thought it was important for the officers who would do this to want to do it. The product would be better if they were passionate about it versus someone who was being told to do it. So when we selected them, the officers we picked, they actually didn't know what Twitter was, or they hadn't heard about it, so we had to bring them up to speed. Fortunately, Twitter's not a hard concept to grasp, so we did that. And we sat them down and we said, tweet about your day. And we want you to tweet about the exciting stuff, but we want you to tweet about the boring stuff, the paperwork. We want you to tweet about the challenging things, because it is a difficult job. And the purpose at the time was to educate the follower and to educate the potential applicant on what they may be getting into as a career. And finally, we gave them guidelines, which Carolyn will talk about a little later, but we wanted to ensure that they weren't strict enough that we couldn't get their personality across. I think we can all agree that people love following people and not companies. And we didn't want the citizens of Edmonton to follow a EPS officer. We wanted them to follow Constable Power, Constable Spiker, Constable Lee, and not just kind of a generic officer. So yeah, we did this in 2009, and we're constantly kind of evolving it and figuring out if it's successful. And we did our first kind of measurement here a few months ago, and we did a sampling of the last 3 classes we hired, and 20% of them used Twitter as a resource prior to being hired. So we're pretty happy with the initial result, and we hope to grow that in the future. And I'll pass it off to Carolyn to talk about how it's evolved from there.
Thank you, Hans. So with the success that the recruiting unit found in 2009, we thought it would be to expand our social media. And with expansion, what I mean is we decided to add some corporate accounts. So we decided to get in the corporate world of social media for Edmonton Police on Twitter as well as Facebook. But before we could really get too deep into that, we definitely had to do our research. Now, I will admit we did have our corporate account set up before we embarked on deep research, but we started by just putting out media releases and other information just to get some of our important information out to citizens, and then we undertook a more in-depth research project. So this involved assessing the risks and the benefits of using social media with law enforcement, and at this time we were still really new for law enforcement to be using social media. So there weren't that many resources out there. It took a little bit for us to do that research, and we ultimately discovered there were more benefits than risks, and so we decided to move forward. After that, we also did a online review. So we looked at blogs and other EPS social media, or sorry, not EPS, policing social media sites from across North America and the world, just to see what people were interested in. What are the citizens across the globe looking at when they are interested in policing on social media? So although that it could very well differ from our local audience, it gave us a starting point. It gave us a place to say, okay, here's what we think people will be interested in. Let's start with that, and then we'll talk to our local audience and find out what it is they're looking for. And that type of research also gave us some initial performance metrics. So we could look at some of the other policing agencies out there and say, what are they doing right? You know, they've got a lot of followers, or they've got a lot of likes, and we could use that as a benchmark to where we wanted to go, or to just set our own goals. So once we completed our research, we decided which channels we were going to start with. And when I say channels, I mean Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. So all of these to us was a different social media channel, a different way to channel information out to the public. So surprise, surprise, we continued on with Facebook. And the EPS actually has 9 different Facebook pages. So we have our corporate page. We also have our recruiting page, and we have a themed page for Edmonton Police Crime Prevention. We do also have an affiliated page, which is Cop Talk Radio. So I don't know if any of you have tuned into Cop Talk Radio on 630 CHED, but they do now have a Facebook page and a Twitter account, actually. So if you tweet in or you post questions to their Facebook page, they will address them live on the radio. And in addition to that, we have 5 divisional pages, so one for each EPS division, and those focus more on sending out division-specific information, in addition to any of the general messages that we send out. We also have our YouTube channels. So the EPS has 3 official YouTube channels. One is our corporate YouTube channel, which is EPS Video Online. We have our recruiting YouTube channel, which is Join EPS. And we also have an associated one for the EPS Hard Target Personal Safety course, which is the Edmonton Police on YouTube. And we use YouTube primarily to store our videos, more so than to actually as a social media channel that we focus on. So we post our videos to YouTube so that they're always accessible to anyone, and then we promote them on Facebook and our website and Twitter. And then Twitter, we expanded here, so we added two corporate accounts. So that was at Edmonton Police, which a lot of you have been tweeting. Thank you. There's Join EPS, which is our recruiting Twitter feed. And then we also have Edmonton Cop Talk, which is, again, the Cop Talk radio. We also expanded on the number of officers that were tweeting, and we added 4 extra officers. So 3 of those are in net partnerships. So they work with the City of Edmonton Neighborhood Empowerment Team, and the 2 of them will tweet together as a team. And if you're looking for any of these Twitter handles or any of these Facebook page URLs, you can visit our main Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Edmonton Police Service, all one word, and you'll find all the information in our About section. So, with these 3 channels, we decided this year for the first time to try out a campaign. So just this past May, we did a crime prevention campaign. May 13th to 18th was Crime Prevention Week, and that's when we launched our crime prevention page. And so this is where we really incorporated all 3 of these channels. You know, we got some videos out there, we had a themed video for each day, we had some photos, we had some live media events that we went to, and we tried to get that information on Facebook. So one day we talked about transit safety, another we talked about personal safety. So it was just our first real foray into the social media campaign world. And it went quite well. At the end, we determined that our EPS crime prevention page raised about 200 likes within the 5 days that we ran the campaign, so we thought that was pretty successful. And since that time, our Twitter account has seen an increase of about 800 followers, and our corporate page has seen an increase of about 200 likes. So now, of course, likes and followers are not the only way to measure your success. That's why we also held a survey as a part of the campaign, so we could get a little bit more qualitative data and get some information from people as to what they want to hear from us. But we were pretty happy with the results. Our corporate Facebook page, during that week, the reach went up by about 500%. During that week, so it showed that our targeted campaign and messaging was really being taken, and the number of people talking about it went up by about 73%. So we were pretty happy with the results. Now, of course, you need content, and the more varied the content and the more often you change that content, the better. So I'm just going to go over the main types of content that we focus on, and I'll be showing you a couple videos and some of that as well. So the most obvious content is our written content. Now, our written content comes from all over the organization, but most of it will be channeled through corporate communications. So we have a team of public affairs specialists and communication advisors, media relations specialists, and digital media specialists. And those people will work together to take these messages and distill them and make sure that they're web ready. So, I mean, you guys are all seem to be very excellent tweeters, but not everybody understands Twitter, not everybody knows how to use it, and 140 characters can be really intimidating. So we try to run all of that through our department to help people draft those messages. And of course, our constables and some of our other net team members have mastered that skill, so they do that now on their own. But anything you see that comes through the corporate page, that definitely comes through corporate communications. So the type of written content we have is media releases, we do some informative stories, we have Edmonton's Most Wanted and Assist to ID, and we also try to put out as many crime prevention tips as we can. And media releases really are a traditional form of communication. You may, if you've attended any social media events, you probably often hear, don't put media releases out there. It bores people. Nobody wants to hear that stuff. And there is definitely some truth to that, but there is a reason why we stick with this type of communication. So I'll go over that a little bit more in the challenges section. Of course, photos. So as Hans was talking about, we really want to give people a glimpse into what it's like to be a police officer. And photos is really important for that. We try really hard to keep our photos original. So we have in-house photographers, we have contract photographers, and we have our public affairs specialists who will go out and try to take photos of our officers in action. So the photos that you see really reflect the EPS members. Of course, we do have to use stock photography from time to time, but we try our best to keep the content original. So here's some examples. This is all photography that was done either through contract or internal. So you can see an officer here doing a canine track, a check stop, and this is what the inside view of Air 1. So that's definitely not something that most citizens would get to see. So we try to really get our photos out there and use the visual. And these are just some, more amateur photos that we took during Crime Prevention Week. So some of the events we had the hard target class, we had our officers at transit stations and riding the trains, we had an officer at school, so just several different views into what we do. So at EPS, we're also blessed to have our own video team. So we have a team of videographers, video editors, and an animator, and they are tirelessly creating content for us every day for both internal and external messaging. So I know that not all organizations can do that, so we are very lucky in that sense, but it is a huge part of our content as well. So during Crime Prevention Week, we had a themed set of videos that we put out every day. Some that you may have seen recently, we did a video on the Kwiatkowski homicide in February. So we were updating the public on our investigation, letting them know where we were at, and soliciting them for more information. So that really helped out our investigation quite a bit. And recently we've also put some videos up for the K9 unit to give people an inside glimpse into how everything happens with the K9 unit. And we've also started with some animations that we're going to be showing you here today. So these are our first kind of foray into the animation world. And these are posted on our website, but they haven't been published through social media yet. So we'll just, we're going to show one of the K9 videos here, if you haven't already seen them. As you can get. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have the volume, but we'll just give you a quick kind of glimpse.
About the next exercise, one of the crucial ones that these canines have to go through. Now, explain exactly what we're about to see.
What we're going to see here is the criminal apprehension profile that our dogs are trained for. We train our dogs to engage a suspect in as many type of environments and scenarios that we can come up with.
Now, I know that this is a safe suit for this volunteer that's in there, but most criminals obviously will not have anything like that. Are the dogs trained to kind of tackle and maybe bite in a certain part of the body?
Our dogs are trained to bite virtually anywhere that they would have access to, so all over the body. Initially, the training begins with equipment, and the training has to progress to working away from equipment. So hidden equipment that the dog can't see, so that they're focused on the man himself.
Now, I know you guys are all part of a team here, and it's all part of teamwork, but who has to lose a bet to get into that jump seat?
Basically, we use a list of volunteers that we have that are police officers with aspirations of becoming a dog handler. So they begin their learning with training, volunteering to lay tracks, and in this case, be bitten by the dogs in training.
And of course, it's good to know exactly what the dog is going to do to you to be in that position so that you know what the criminal is going to be thinking as well.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Constable.
You're very welcome.
So the message is, you don't want our dogs coming after you. No. We're also going to show you some safety animations. We've got 3. They're really short. So just a little sampling of some of the stuff that we're working on. So stay tuned to our Facebook pages and our website for more of that. So the last type of content we're talking about is surveys, and this is something really new to us. Our first survey that we conducted online was a part of Crime Prevention Week, and it's very informal, so no real formal scientific survey here. I mean, we did have our survey department look over the survey, but our real goal was just to find out what are the people using our social media? What do they know about us in terms of social media? What content do they want to hear from us? Are we doing a good job? Are there other channels that we should be exploring? So for Crime Prevention Week, we had about 185 people fill out our survey, so we were pretty happy with that. And we did find out some interesting information. The Edmonton Police Service does have crime alerts that go out via email, and that was one of the questions on the survey. And we found out that 65% of people didn't know we had that, and they were interested in it. So that's valuable information to us. It tells us that we need to advertise this more, we need to make it more accessible to citizens. And we also asked them what other types of technology they use, and we found out that Pinterest was one of the up-and-coming ones. So that also gives us some information on where we are going to potentially go in the future. So, policy. How many of you out there are working on policy for your organization? And has it been fun for you? Yeah, it's difficult, right? I mean, and this is, I would almost say this relates to one of our challenges, although I'm not putting it in the challenges section, just because we are a different type of organization, so it's hard to find general social media policy that applies for us. But we do have an internal social media policy, and this policy governs officers like Constable Lee who are doing social media with us, or any units or section or branches that want to represent us as an organization. And so the policy outlines how they get involved. It gives them some guidelines. It tells them how they can message, how they can respond. It provides details on how we monitor all of our accounts and also how we moderate. And we are certainly going to be releasing a public terms of use policy as well in the coming weeks. And that's just a basic outline of what we expect from citizens when we are chatting with them and what they can expect from us, more importantly. You know, how are we going to be responding? What is our moderation policy? You know, if you said something and your post gets deleted, why are we deleting it? You know, and we do try to, our rule is to always let people know why we are deleting their post off of our page, unless it's spam. But those are the types of things that our policy outlines. So if an officer wants to get involved with social media, they will come to corporate communications and we'll chat with them about their audience and their objective and make sure it aligns with the EPS vision and mission, in addition to aligning with what the message they're trying to get out. Because sometimes social media isn't the best way. Maybe their audience isn't on social media, or that message just isn't appropriate. So we, in corporate communications, use the policy as a guide to determining if we think it's appropriate to have them on social media. And then we provide them with guidelines and training so that they feel comfortable going out and using the technology. So I'm going to hand it back over to Hans, and he's going to chat with you about purpose.
So why exactly are we doing all these things on social media? And I see this tweet up here that says, what about interaction? One of the reasons why we're doing it is community engagement. The social media, as many of you guys know, it makes it really easy for you to interact with your customers and for us to interact with our citizens. So we see a lot of people asking, or a lot of citizens asking our officers questions, and it really opens the door to that two-way communication. I'm just going to read a few testimonials here from Twitter. I think you're doing well to tweet what is happening in our neighborhoods. I always read your tweets when I get a chance, and that's by Say Sandra. Just like the Cop Talk show on 6:30 Shed, it's another avenue to allow normal, hardworking citizens to interact with you. And that's by Shizug. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And you guys on Twitter is an excellent way to communicate with the public. Keep up the great work. And that is by Jay Haggett. So again, the community engagement allows us to practice our core tenet of community policing by interacting with our citizens. Second, communication. We want a lot of the things we publish on the EPS website to be pushed to the social networks like Facebook and Twitter, because maybe someone doesn't regularly visit our website, but they spend a lot of time on Facebook and or Twitter. So an example of this is media releases, and Carolyn will touch on why we do that. But this is a way for citizens in their venue, whatever social network they spend their time on, to get those safety tips, to get those media releases, to find out what's happening in the city of Edmonton. Like I was talking about, maybe a couple minutes ago. It does help tell our citizens what a day is like for a cop and what it means to wear the uniform and have that badge. And I just want to read a tweet here. This is someone who's interested in the process, but he says, "The officers tweeting the dispatch are very huge motivators. Thank you very much for keeping me up to date and informed." And that's by Heavy J 220. And finally, there's the aspect of humanizing officers. In 2009, when we thought this up, this was actually one of the core tenets that we had hoped to achieve. And about 2 years after we started this, so late last year, a blogger in Fort McMurray wrote a post, and he kind of wrote something that we had hoped to encapsulate, and I'm just going to read it here. "I first discovered tweeting officers when I discovered Constable Power from Edmonton Police on Twitter. I was intrigued. The officer tweeted about many police matters, but most often just his day-to-day job, pulling over suspected drunk drivers, apprehending youths with alcohol. Often what he had to say was funny. Sometimes it was poignant. Sometimes it made me angry as he was dealing with situations that would be frustrating to anyone. What I began to notice, though, was that Constable Power was no longer just a cop, but a living, breathing, feeling human being, doing a very difficult job. He was being quite utterly human." And so, like I said, we thought that was that encapsulated what we had hoped it would happen. And we think the officers tweeting really kind of sheds the light that these guys are more than just a uniform and a badge, and that they're people doing a job that's difficult at times. And I'll pass it off back to Carolyn for some challenges.
So I've been reading some of your questions coming up here, so I will chat about Pinterest towards the end of my presentation, so don't worry. I'm not going to leave that question open-ended. And also, I saw the question come up. You just hear about us pushing a message out, and you're right, it is about responding. So like Hans was talking about community engagement, it is about the citizens being able to ask us questions. And that does pose some challenges for us, so I'll use that as my segue. You heard me say that we're a different kind of organization, so you're probably wondering, well, why? Why exactly are we so different? Well, first, we're public, so we're not for profit, and that's not to say that that makes us hugely different from other organizations out there, but it certainly impacts how we tweet and how we post on Facebook. In addition, we, as an organization, I'm losing my train of thought here. Sorry, guys, I've totally drawn a blank. So that's one of our main challenges. And of course, there we go. We are an emergency response association, right? So our job is to get out there and to protect citizens and keep communities safe. That's our number one priority. And that definitely impacts how we get out there and do our social media. So our first challenge is definitely information. And what I mean by information is that we are bound, obviously, by Canadian law, as well as internal and external protocols and procedures, and that determines the type of information that we can put out. So as much as we'd like to provide you with detail, it's our job to protect victims and to protect the accused or the suspects, and we just can't release all of that detail all of the time. And that can be difficult because we know that citizens want to hear from us. They want the details. They want to know what's going on. And oftentimes we just can't tweet about it or we can't respond. So that is the reason why. And that's certainly a challenge for us because we are human and we do want to engage in conversation as often as possible. In addition to that, there's time. So of course, while we may be able to respond to crimes very quickly, investigating them takes time. And there's teams of people involved in investigations from all over the organization. So it takes time for us to be able to get the answers. And sometimes, in addition to all the protocols and procedures that prevent us from providing those answers, we have to vet those answers through different content experts. And so that can certainly be a delay in terms of our ability to respond. Another big challenge is resources. Again, our main focus is to protect citizens and protect the community, so that is the first part of our job, and our social media comes second, and that goes for all of us in the organization, whether it's the officers or the civilian members who do the social media internally. So we have to do those other parts of our job first, and we often have to reach out and get that information from the content experts throughout the organization, and they're busy. They're working on multiple cases, and for us to find that legal, safe answer that we can give the public takes time. So a lot of that is contingent on resources, and currently at EPS, everyone does social media in addition to their regular job. So there isn't one sole individual in the organization that is completely focused on social media. So we're hoping to go that way at some point in the future, but we just can't do that right now. We need to keep our members on the streets and keep them out there, keeping Edmonton safe. So that's another challenge for us. And this, I should touch on this, this is a big reason why our feeds are not monitored 24/7, and why we encourage the public to call 911 or to call the complaint line, because our phones are manned 24/7. There will always be someone there to talk to you. So as much as we want to be able to respond to you via social media, please call in, because the time delay can be the difference between a really, really bad emergency situation. And that's when it comes to crime reporting and tips as well. There's definitely a verification process that our members are trained to go through when they speak to somebody on the phone. And because we don't have somebody monitoring our feeds, it really delays that verification process. So the officers aren't able to ask you the right questions to confirm the details of your tip or your crime report. And in addition, we have the privacy issue as well. I mean, social media is getting better with their privacy, but it's not always that private. So, and we don't want people to have their privacy compromised by submitting information to our social media channels. So, I mean, you will often probably see on our Facebook page or on Twitter, please call in, and that's the reason we do that. And our last main challenge is neutrality. And I think this is probably, Constable Lee can probably identify with this, and as well as Chris and Tricia. We have to remain fairly neutral. So it's not an easy task when you're being told, let your personality shine through, because a part of your personality is having an opinion, about the things that you deal with day in and day out. So it's not always easy to have to curb back that opinion, and we have to, for legal reasons as well as for, because we're representing our organization. So that's definitely a challenge for us as well. And thankfully, I think our officers do a really good job at remaining neutral and putting out the facts and still keeping it kind of humorous and getting our personality out there, but definitely still a challenge. So, despite these few minor challenges that we work with every day, as well as the fact that we are a little under-resourced in this area, we do have some plans coming for the future. Our first one is the campaign trail. So we really enjoyed doing our last campaign, and although they are a lot of work, we definitely want to give it another shot. So we're hoping to do more crime prevention targeted messaging, and we'll probably be looking to do that in the fall of 2012. So stay tuned for some more videos and animations and all that stuff that will come along with our themed week. But we don't have a target date set for that yet. So blogs is another place we'd really like to go. And this one really is determined by resourcing, because it would more than likely be an officer who's going to blog about their experiences on patrol or in their specific unit, and that takes time. Again, this is something that they would more than likely do outside of their shift. So once we have the resources, we'd really like to move into that world of social media as well. Other channels, so Pinterest, you see my little pin it there. So based on our survey, yes, we did see that was probably, after Facebook and Twitter, Pinterest was probably the next one that our audience was starting to use. But looking on Pinterest, we haven't found a whole lot there on policing yet. And that's not to say that we can't be the first, but we just don't feel like our audience is 100% there yet, and that our messaging is there. But that's not to say we're not going to do it. We are keeping tabs on it, and we're constantly thinking of ways that we could promote information through Pinterest. So it's really just a matter of time before we get involved in Pinterest, and potentially other channels. And what this slide really represents is that we are always looking at what's going on out there in social media. And sometimes we have to determine that, our audience just isn't there, or it doesn't meet our objective, or it doesn't fit with the organization's mission and vision. So we won't go into that channel if that's the case, because we are tight on resources, so we have to be careful with how much we actually put out there and how many more channels we take on. So it always increases our monitoring. Crime reporting. So I just said you can't report crime reports and tips on Twitter, but we are looking at developing an online crime reporting system, so for minor crimes. And this is in the early phases right now. They've started talking about it. They're in the project planning stages, and we're hoping within, I can't really give you a really good timeline, hopefully the next 2 years, maybe sooner than that, we're hoping to have an online crime reporting system. So another way for you to submit your minor crimes without having to come in and talk to us. Although we do love it when people come in and talk to us. Face-to-face communication is always good as well. So that concludes my part, or Hans and I, and for social media overview. So I'm going to hand over the microphone to Chris Andrejczyk, who's going to talk about NET and how they got involved with the EPS and moved into social media.
Well, good morning. My name is Chris Andrejczyk. I'm a social worker with the City of Edmonton. So we work with the Edmonton Police Service, but we lack the Batman belts. I think that's the major difference. Just some housekeeping. Neighborhood Empowerment Team is the result of a four-way partnership, which includes the City of Edmonton, the Edmonton Police Service, the United Way, and the Family Centre. Now, what that looks like on the ground is a constable, a social worker, and a youth worker who all work together in targeted communities. We're in 6 communities throughout the city. And teams work for a period of approximately 4 years in a community intervention, and overall the goal is to mobilize community. Build capacity, there we go. And of course to reduce crime and fear. Prior to this gig as supervisor, I was actually deployed into Macaulay with Chapman Lee as one of the key parts of the violence reduction strategy. And a fundamental aspect of that strategy was reducing the fear of crime and perception of violence. In my estimation, the fear of crime can be very dangerous for communities because it leads to somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you perceive your community as being unsafe, you're less likely to participate in your community. But if you don't participate in your community, the likelihood of it becoming unsafe increases. One of the unfortunate misconceptions with the violence experienced in 2011 was that it was random, or that there were some communities in our city that were unsafe to participate in. The reality is it was actually the most vulnerable and marginalized that were largely the victims of the violence, and it was often perpetrated by the most marginalized and vulnerable as well. So with that said, our lofty task when we looked at social media was we could use social media to contextualize the violence that we were seeing in the inner city. I'm not suggesting with my last point that the fact that folks are marginalized, it doesn't make it better. It doesn't take away from the violence that's experienced, but it does provide context, and I think it furthers understanding. So we took this lofty goal to our respective communications people with the city and with EPS and all our partners, and they were very supportive. At that time, though, the suggestion was that we not just immediately jump on Twitter. Net, currently we're getting a little bit better, but we lack a really great web presence, so it would be fine and well for me to tweet that I'm riding my bike as a city social worker, but unless you understood our mission and mandate, it really was not as effective. So I started posting to Transforming Edmonton, and Chapman started a Twitter account. In a fairly short order, we realized that there was interest in the narratives of the frontline and kind of our perspectives in terms of violence that was happening citywide. That's based on the amount of followers that Chapman had and the hits that we received on the Transforming Edmonton blog. So shortly after that, I started a Twitter account to complement the blog, and that was our experiment in Macaulay. It fundamentally changed the way that we as the Neighborhood Empowerment Team do business. Currently, our community capacity builders, it's another term for social workers, they're all on Twitter, varying degrees of tweeting, but they're all on Twitter now, and we just launched our Facebook page as well, in addition to blogging on Transforming Edmonton. I wouldn't say that social media has replaced any of our traditional means of communicating with the community, but it's certainly a value-added service in terms of community engagement. I was asked to talk about a few highlights more so than just the amount of followers that we received. I have to say, though, that Chapman's roster is fairly impressive. I think he's at like 1,000 followers. It's a constable thing, though, I swear. It's just, people really like to follow the constables. We trail behind. But beyond that, like just a few examples. When Chapman and I were in Macaulay, we were talking about the relationship we were seeing between violent victimization and the overconsumption of alcohol. And there was a few products that we were talking about that, let's just say they weren't part of the solution. High in alcohol, inexpensive, large quantities. We caught the attention of Molson Coors Canada, and I'll make a long story short. Subsequently, Molson Coors Canada stepped up and they shifted their corporate practices province-wide and actually pulled a few of these products. So we didn't reach out to them. That was just from them following our message. Some other stuff, I'm going to brag about my team. We have the highest read blogs on Transforming Edmonton in the history of the city's website. And Alex Stratford is actually in the audience. Put up your hand. He's our social worker on 118th Ave. Are folks familiar with the Dear John campaign? Did anyone hear about that? That was our first campaign that used social media as the main medium to connect with community. It was so popular that it was trending day of in Edmonton, and the amount of hits to Transform Edmonton nearly crashed the city's website. They actually had to do a little work background. So that's our most recent success. As a social worker, though, and as someone who works with a team to build capacity and to reduce crime and to connect folks, I think that social media's biggest benefit is it adds a means to the ends of just allowing us to do that community engagement work. And that's me. I think that I'm a manager now, but we actually have a team who's on the ground, who's tweeting from the ground. So Trish and Chapman are going to come up and say a few words.
Okay, thanks. So I'm new to Twitter, but I wanted to share a few words about our experience so far. And so one of the benefits that we've experienced as a team is that it allows, as Chris mentioned, for the wider Edmonton to know what's happening in a local community and reduce maybe not reduce, but just clarify the perception of what's happening on the ground. And then as well to really engage some of the community partners and share information about what they're doing. Because really with capacity building, we want to make sure that people know who's involved and what's happening and connect. So we've really loved that. One challenge we've had is, we're as a partnership, we are representing quite a few larger corporations, and we do have to be very careful with what we share. And so not only just EPS, but also the City of Edmonton, the Family Center, and United Way. So we're representing quite a few as we do that, as well as I would add another one there with the community that we serve, right? So the community people that we work with. So that's all that I wanted to share.
What she said. But with myself, I'm pretty new to Twitter. I'm one of the police officers that had to learn how to use Twitter. I never touched it before. So it's one of the challenges that I face a lot is finding a good balance between Chapman Lee, the police officer, and Chapman Lee, the person. It's important that people know that I'm a real person. I'm not just a robot. But at the same time, I have to also be very careful. Some of the investigations that I'm involved in, some of the people that I'm involved with, we always say protect them, but we really do have to watch out for them. Sorry, I'm beeping like crazy here. So that's, I think, one of our biggest challenges as well with our neighborhood. What's interesting about it is people have asked me before, Chapman, why are you tweeting to people in Macaulay? They might not even have cell phones, a lot of the people that you deal with. But the whole idea is that reaching out. There's other neighborhoods, there's other people. There's other people that follow me that are outside of the city that want to know what's going on. How do we work in an inner city? How do we work in the inner city? That's interesting to them. So this is a medium for us to provide that context to them.
Thanks.
Well, that concludes our presentation. I guess we do have some call to actions for you guys. Is that what you guys call them? So just for prizes. So get ready. If you're not on Twitter right now, then we'll give you a couple seconds to get ready because you can win some prizes courtesy of Social Media Breakfast Edmonton. Yay for them. It's awesome. So I'll start off. So I hope you were listening during my presentation because mine's going to be a little bit of a sort of pop quiz question. So do include SMBYEG in your tweet as well as Edmonton Police and tell us how many Facebook pages do we have. And the first person to tweet that will win a prize. So SMBYEG will be watching to see who the first one is, and if you are that person, then you get a prize.
For us, you can do both or all three or one. First person to retweet the last @JoinEPS tweet that I sent out this morning will get a prize. So all you have to do is retweet it.
Mine is extremely simple. Anyone who just first person rather who retweets what I put out this morning, there's a prize in it for you. First person to push me to 12,000 followers.
You got your answers there.
first one there. That's the one.
Yeah, Ryan Godfrey, you're a winner.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Come sit at the end. We have got a bunch for you to choose from. So while everybody is rapidly trying to win those prizes, we're going to open the floor up to questions. And I expect that there'll be lots of hands. So who's got a question?
You know me, I always have a question.
Hello?
Hi.
Sorry, I just quickly, if you don't mind, I just want to answer. There was a question that came up on the feed here really quick, and they were asking if you can text 911.
That was me too.
Oh, was that you too? There you go. So I don't believe you can yet, not in Edmonton, no, that's not. And I'm not sure really if they're looking into that. Definitely something I can ask about, but I don't believe they're heading down that road just yet.
So maybe you could take that away and let us know when you know, and we can make sure our feed gets the answer to that later.
Yeah, I will do my best. My understanding of the issue with the 911 is just it comes a lot down to location, so pinpointing the location of where something's happening. And with mobile technology, you can sometimes have signals coming from towers that aren't necessarily where that individual is. And a text message, again, isn't a very long message. So it can be difficult, to go through that verification process and get the information. So I believe that's why they're holding back, but there's probably research being done into it across North America. So EPS is always trying to keep up with that. So.
Okay, my question is about, I spend a lot of time with people in the emergency management field, and there's a lot of talk of social media and crisis communications, and how do you use social media in an emergency disaster / type situation, and I was just wondering if you had any comments or thoughts on how that all works, should work, how you use it, what you've seen.
That's actually a really timely question because we just dealt with a fairly high level 1 response just on June 15th with the unfortunate circumstances at the U of A, and that's a level 1 response. So not really a crisis for the public, but definitely something that got the public's attention. And that was really our first experience with that. So what we decided to do with that was just to keep our Twitter feeds and our Facebook pages open to only messages related to that. So if you asked us a question that day and we didn't respond, that was why, because we just didn't feel it was appropriate to be responding to other things at the time. We wanted to keep our messaging strictly related to that because that was the key message. So that would be my recommendation during crisis communication, and have a plan. I mean, definitely have a crisis communications plan. I've looked into that a little bit. I know there are, I believe the University of Colorado in Boulder is working on a big project right now with some of their PhD and master students about crisis management, and they've tested out using Twitter and other social media during the tsunami and during the earthquake in Haiti, and how they could use that to get the messages out, and they were actually able to pinpoint where these tweets were coming from. So they are working on developing that technology, and I would definitely check out the University of Colorado in Boulder. They're probably a good resource if you're looking into that, but above all, have a crisis communication plan and have some tweets ready, some emergency tweets. So if you're not able to respond right away, then make sure that you have a tweet, especially in the case of a crisis, a public information message or something like that that you can just have ready and tweet out right away.
I do communications for healthcare, and it would be great if nurses and our other health specialists would be personal and could tweet about their day. But their main focus is the patients, and also privacy. So how, if I wanted to propose that, how do you think they could even incorporate that into their day?
You know what, I'm going to actually defer to one of the tweeters here, because they probably have more experience in how they craft their message than anything. So I'll let one of you guys take that. Like, how do you do that?
One of the big things that I do, first thing that I do is I don't include names of anybody. And that's where the whole piece of staying neutral is really important. You can talk about the event. You can have your own thoughts about the event, what makes it funny or what makes it interesting to you. But you have to be really careful about not giving too much information, and there's a balance. So it's not an easy thing. It's hard for me to tell you exactly how to do it. You just have to do it.
Yeah, no, it certainly can be difficult. There's some things that you just assume that you wouldn't include, a name or a picture or that sort of thing. Really, with us and with our team, social media is not our job. It's an addition to, and it really is quite a commitment. I think that just it adds, I would say, at least an extra 5 hours a week to our workload. And a lot of that's over and above what we already put in. So the priority is our program goals, and then social media secondary. So if we can squeeze it in, then
I guess for me, I'm definitely crafting, being really aware of whether when I'm releasing something, it's more of a curious nature. So making sure that I'm asking questions rather than forming an opinion about something. And so that sometimes wording can be tough that way. And also linking it to a wider context. So when I'm crafting, I'm really being aware of where else can they find more information about this, so that my one tweet or someone's on top of that is not forming an opinion, that they look on the wider context of what's going on. As they form an opinion and as they interact.
And I'll just add something. When we got started in 2009, it was uncharted territory for us, because we had the first 2 officers. And you know what? At the end of the day, you had to explain them what they had to do, and you had to trust the person who's sending out the tweets. So whoever you do pick, make sure they know the do's and don'ts. Make sure they have common sense, and make sure above and all you trust them, that they're gonna represent your company your company well. So.
And just to add to that, because you're asking about how do you make a proposal for that, I would say, make sure you have some social media guidelines that you can offer as a part of your proposal. Again, like what Hans said, the trust, and talk about monitoring, about having a monitoring system in place so that you can check in on these people from time to time. And of course, they're going to make mistakes sometimes. That's just what'll happen. We're looking into using Hootsuite right now. We were going to go into a higher enterprise level system, but for right now, we're just going to start with Hootsuite and then move forward from that point. But at this point, we are just in the process of setting that up. So right now, it really is just a manual thing that we check as often as we can. So definitely a lot of work. So I would but even in terms of just a monitoring process, that you're going to have one dedicated person or 2 dedicated people. They're going to check in on your tweeters from time to time and make sure that what they're tweeting is appropriate, and providing them with updates on whether or not they're doing a good job or a bad job, right? Because, I think all the tweeters have probably had an instance where they tweeted something out and it was like, oh, I don't know if I should have done that, maybe that wasn't so good, So it's really just kind of experimental.
I got one more quick one. The City of Edmonton, we have, of course, social media guidelines, and that's a living document that's evolving. And I like to think that NET's testing the water a bit with that. But beyond that, all of our staff are social workers, and as social workers, we have to adhere to a certain code of ethics. So my hope would be that the messaging is consistent and comes from that code. Like, we have to adhere to that in all practice, and whether it's something that we'd say at a meeting or at a wherever, that it would just transfer into social media as well.
Hi, my question is about the Dear John campaign. Obviously, very successful campaign, did really good on the blog and everything. However, the hashtag is also used for the movie. Was there any thought ahead of time about that, or was that kind of a, oh crap, that's also used for the movie afterwards?
Did we ever confuse some tweens? Because I feel so bad for all these young people who are tweeting about how much they love this guy, and then we're talking about sexual exploitation. Someone coined it a hashtag collision. So I think like Alec can speak to this, but I think the lesson learned was that it was our first time, and it was caused some interesting conversation, but we really need to be a little bit more diligent in terms of seeing if that's an original hashtag in the beginning.
Yeah, it was a oh crap moment when we went live, and it was such a mix of hashtags, because you've got people chatting about or tweeting about how much they love Channing Tatum mixed with sexual exploitation hurts the community hashtags. So it was definitely something that we learned. The next time we do a campaign, which we will do another social media campaign, we'll make sure that we've got our own hashtag so that doesn't happen again. It did probably get us more followers, though, in the end.
Early on, you guys said people are interested in stories and people versus, Edmonton Police as a sort of broader organization. And so I'm just kind of wondering, like, I've been following very loosely what Edmonton Police has been doing on Twitter, and the thing that really grinds my gears is when people start tweeting check stop locations, or even just like if there's a speed trap, stuff like that. So as people, and I'm looking at you, I guess, Constable Lee, how do you choose to engage in stuff like that, or even just those nasty trolls, because you're police, and I'm sure a lot of people don't always spread the love. So how do you decide to engage, or just your response to that, I suppose?
I think I dealt with that the first week I was on Twitter. It was, we deal with that on a daily basis. Abuse to police officers isn't anything new. So the good thing about Twitter is I can choose to not respond to some of those things. And a lot of the trolling, they know what they're doing. And that's where the corporate messaging comes in handy. And after a few of these messages, they'll typically get the idea that I don't want to participate anymore. But again, it's always a challenge whenever you represent a big organization. People are going to try to take shots at you. I think all of us who jump on Twitter from the Edmonton Police Service, it's something we realize when we go in more or less better equipped.
I'll just add to that. The first couple years, I mean, we have an amazing community on Twitter in Edmonton. I can't even count on one hand the problems we've had, because we haven't really had any. And when an officer sent out a tweet that maybe was misinterpreted, before that officer can even respond, we had 5 or 7 people from the community messaging that person saying, hey, listen, here's what he or she meant. So, I mean, there are trolls out there or whatever, but we do have an awesome community, and it seems like we have an awesome community that does support our officers.
That's really rad to hear. I'm glad that
That's actually what I was going to add, was that a lot of the times we find, even with our corporate account, we don't have to go and respond to these people, because other citizens have responded for us. And what I really try to tell our tweeters is, you don't always have to respond. You really don't. I mean, if you look at a tweet and you know that this person is just trying to take you down a negative road and get you into hot water in terms of the conversation, then you can choose not to respond. I mean, and I think that's an important rule for everyone when they're using social media. I mean, responding is important, and we aim to respond, but sometimes, either we can't, or we just assess the situation and say, you know what, I don't know if this is a good conversation for us to enter into. Not because we don't have something to say, but we think that regardless of what we say, the conversation is going to get continuously more negative, right? So we're not afraid by any means to hear negative feedback. If you have comments for us that maybe aren't the nicest, we will listen to them, and our policy is not to delete a comment unless it uses any sort of defamatory language, or it's insulting to us or to other people, other users on our pages, or if it's using bad language. Those are some of the reasons why we might not respond. But if you start to do that continuously, like Constable Lee said, we'll send you a message. We try to do it privately to let you know that this is not the type of behavior that we won't engage with you, and we will block you or delete your posts if you continue to do that, because it's not fair to the rest of the community that comes to our page and does want to talk to us. They don't need to be dealing with that kind of behavior either. So it's a difficult task, though, to make that judgment sometimes.
Hi there. I'm a former crime reporter, so I still believe that that crime reporting has a big effect in the community, and obviously you guys are a storehouse for a lot of information. Do you guys have a strategic policy around responding to news articles, or adding information or correcting information you feel is wrong in media reports using social media?
We don't at this time. If anything, we defer those to our media relations team, so the actual people that talk to the media and talk to the reporter. So if we notice something, we'll tell our media advisors, and we'll let them contact the news outlet to try to correct the information. So that's what we try to do right now, but that is a really good suggestion. So it's something I can take back.
Sorry, sort of a side question to that was just, Sorry, a side question to that is, do you guys have an overall strategic direction? Like, obviously, NET gets involved with, community building in particular communities, but is there an overall strategic plan for your communications to affect ideas or directions across the whole city?
I wouldn't say we have a citywide plan. Our strategic plan right now is just to try to get more resources so that we can talk to people more, get into more of those one-on-one conversations and respond. And of course, through those conversations, we'll hopefully be able to address some of the citywide issues. And then to focus on more targeted messaging. So whether that's community specific or citywide. So for example, in the fall, we are looking at potentially doing a campaign around going back to school in September, right? So things for people to look out for kids when they go back to school, and some tips for parents and tips for teachers. And so we're just going to try at this point. We are still really testing the waters with different key messaging. It's really a resourcing issue that's keeping us from fulfilling any sort of larger strategic plan. So
I have some comments from the chat room, which is another back channel going on now. They had a lot of questions about the lack of engagement regarding talking back and like not responding to people, and you kind of addressed it saying that sometimes it's inappropriate or there's a policy against that. Yeah. They replied to that saying, if you could let people know that you can't respond as opposed to just not responding, that would go miles in their minds.
Thank you. Yeah, and we do, if we can, we try to issue a statement that says, "I'm sorry, we can't comment on that." But in some cases, it really depends on the tone of the information that we get as well, right? If we feel like it's overly negative or they just want to sort of pick an argument with us, that's sometimes why we don't say anything, just because if we tell them we can't respond, they're going to be mad at us anyway, right? It's a lose-lose situation. But that it is really good advice, and thank you for that, and we'll take that back, and we'll do our best to try to respond regardless. I mean, we definitely try, but a lot of times it's a time issue. But thank you. We appreciate it.
They say thank you.
Let's see if we can, there's the mic. Oh, just wait. Livecast can't hear you if you just talk.
You had said earlier you were going to comment about why you push out news releases through social media and why you do see the value in still doing that. I also believe that it's not a bad thing as long as that's not the only thing that you're doing with your accounts. So can you just comment about why you do that?
Yeah, and really it's because, it's a more formal, you're guaranteed that when you read our media releases that information has gone through all of the checks. It's been vetted through all of the content experts throughout the organization. It meets our legal requirements. It follows our protocol and procedure. It is exactly the information that we can release to the public. So if you're ever curious about something, a conversation on Twitter, and you want some details and you're hearing rumors, check out our feed, look for a media release. That is the information that we can release. And if you have more specific questions, we may not be able to give you the details, but then tweet us, and we'll try our best to respond to that. But that's why we stick to that traditional form, just because it gives the public, okay, this is an official channel of information from the police. This is what they're actually saying. So, and it allows us to keep a consistent message as well, which I think is important. The message that the public's getting through Twitter and through Facebook is the same message that the media is getting. So whether or not the media, investigates further and includes more of a story, I mean, that's beyond our control. And sometimes they do a great job, filling out the story. So, but that core information is our consistent message.
Do you use that to try and correct the record sometimes too? If 2 or 3 days after an event, people come back with more questions, you can reference them back to them?
Yes, yeah, we'll definitely do that. And sometimes we'll issue follow-up media releases. You've probably seen that too. We'll start off by saying, this has happened, we're looking for this individual. And then a couple of days later, you'll see another media release saying, we've caught this individual, or we have a suspect, here's a photo, can you help us, right? So yeah, we'll definitely try to refer people back to that if we can.
I just have a question for you in regards to engaging the public and whatnot. I was a big fan of when you did the campaign earlier in the year with the outstanding warrants and the kind of the public shame campaign sort of deal. I know that, and I'm not sure if this is something that can be done in Canada, but in the States, a lot of places, in a lot of communities, what they do is they publish almost a weekly magazine of all the people that had mugshots taken that week and that were arrested, and they publish it to the community and they sell it for $1. And it's basically just a picture of everybody's had a mugshot taken and what they were, arrested for and why their picture was taken. And do you feel that would be something that might could work here in Edmonton as well, or is that something that we can even do due to privacy laws and whatnot?
Defer to the yeah, absolutely not. When we arrest somebody, we don't convict them. How it works is police arrest on reasonable probable grounds. And when we arrest them, we photograph them. That information is protected and is private because it could turn out that you don't get convicted. The judge doesn't find you guilty. And then meanwhile, you have a mugshot of you and what you got arrested for floating around outside. It's not good for anybody.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I know in the States they're able to get that information through privacy, access to privacy requests, and so that's probably not something we could do here, eh? Like it's just it's too protected.
Yeah, I would definitely mirror what Constable Lee has to say, and it's interesting that you brought that up because we were looking at that. We read some articles on it that came out through the States, and what happens a lot in the States is that there's other companies out there on the web that will take these, you've probably heard of that, these photos and publish them. And so that's where you would, with law enforcement, run into problems because it's hard to get that information back once it's out there, right? So even if we posted the photo and then they were found not guilty, well, now their photo and their information is out there. And in the States, some people are paying, a lot of money to get these photos taken down. So we don't want to, head down that road.
True enough, thank you.
Anybody else? I had a quick question that hasn't been touched on, but I think is an interesting issue, is Amber Alerts. I know we've seen it several times in Edmonton where the Amber Alert is still being retweeted and tweeted the day after the child was found. What would you recommend for social media savvy people about making sure we have the most current information when it comes to things like that?
I believe Amber Alert has an official Twitter feed, so I would say follow the Amber Alert Twitter feed and see what they're posting and try to stick with them. And you can also follow our Twitter feed if it's dealing specifically with something that the Edmonton Police is handling. We'll definitely put out a news release that says that person has been found. So check that feed, and then we'll be updating that as quickly as we can.
Thanks. One more question? Anybody? Apparently not. I'm going to hand the mic over to Steve.
That was weird for me. It's like breathing talking into a microphone. So I was like, but excellent questions. Thank you guys so much for coming today and presenting for us and nourishing our minds about the awesome things that you do. I'm definitely going to follow more and more about what the social workers are doing and what the officers are doing and what you guys are doing. You guys are doing some amazing community building in our city, and I thank you for that. Another thing I wanted to plug is actually my SMBYEG on Twitter. How many people follow my SMBYEG on Twitter? Because if you don't, you darn well should. They're the community feed for the Edmonton CBC, and they shamelessly promote some awesome things. Annette, the gal in the lovely polo shirt back there, is amazing. She is a shameless promoter of the CBC. She is a shameless promoter of our city. So definitely follow them and stay tuned to their sweet tweets. So now it's some people's favorite part of social media breakfast, introductions. We're kind of box breakers in this sense. I love the eye rolls. Pardon what now? Yeah, a round of applause first. Really loud so the people on internet lands can hear you.